This pre-application information session is for the FY 2022 OVW Enhanced Training and Services to End Abuse in Later Life program. I am Janice Green, and I manage the Abuse in Later Life program. The Abuse in Later Life program solicitation was posted on or about February 28, 2022. The purpose of this call is to provide information regarding the Abuse in Later Life program solicitation. I will cover highlights of the solicitation in today's call. However, it is not the intent, nor is there sufficient time to go over every aspect of the solicitation. All applicants are responsible for reading the solicitation and reviewing the contents of all application materials and ensuring that a complete application is submitted. Abuse in Later Life program staff cannot provide any feedback to applicants about the quality of an applicant's proposal or provide any information outside of that presented in the solicitation. Abuse in Later Life program staff will be available throughout the period that the solicitation is open to respond to any questions about application requirements. If you have the Abuse in Later Life solicitation in front of you, today's call will follow the order of topics as listed in the solicitation. Applications are submitted through a two-step process. The deadline for application submissions in grants.gov is April 21st, 2022 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. The deadline for application submission in JustGrants system, also known as JustGrants, is April 26th, 2022 at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. The Abuse in Later Life program is authorized by 34 U.S.C. Section 12421. The fiscal year 2022 OVW will fund projects that will support a comprehensive approach to addressing elder abuse, neglect, and exploitation, including domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking for victims who are 50 years of age or older. Applicants must address the following four mandatory purpose areas. 1. Provide training programs to assist law enforcement agencies, prosecutors, agencies of state or units of local government, population-specific organizations, victim service providers, victim advocates, and relative officers in federal, tribal, state, territorial, and local courts in recognizing and addressing instances of elder abuse. 2. Provide or enhance services for victims of abuse in later life, including domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, exploitation, and neglect. Next slide. 3. Establish or support a multidisciplinary, collaborative community response to victims of abuse in later life, including domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, exploitation, and neglect. And 4. Conduct cross-training for law enforcement agencies, prosecutors, agencies of state or units of local government, attorneys, healthcare providers, population-specific organizations, faith-based advocates, victim service providers, and courts to better serve victims of abuse in later life, including domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, exploitation, and neglect. Next slide. Applicants may address the following two permissible purpose areas. 1. Provide training programs to assist attorneys, healthcare providers, faith-based leaders, or other community-based organizations in recognizing and addressing instances of abuse in later life, including domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, exploitation, and neglect. And 2. Conduct outreach activities and awareness campaigns to ensure that victims of abuse in later life, including domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, exploitation, and neglect, receive appropriate assistance. Please note, not more than 10% of total grant funds can be used for this purpose area. The Abuse in Later Life Program statute requires that priority be given to proposals providing services to culturally specific and underserved populations. Applications proposing to meaningfully increase access to OVW programming for these populations will be given special consideration. On page 6, the solicitation lists specific activities that are outside the scope of the Abuse in Later Life program that will not be supported for the program's funding. Applications that propose activities that are deemed to be substantially out of scope may receive a deduction in points during the review process or may be eliminated from consideration entirely. Funding levels under this program for FY 2022 are $400,000 for projects with a service area population of up to 400,000, $600,000 for projects with a service area population of 401,000 to 700,000, $750,000 for projects with a service area population of 700,001 and above, $750,000 for statewide projects regardless of the service area population. The award period is 48 months for new applicants. Budgets must reflect 48 months of project activity. A minimum of 25% of the proposed budget funds must be allocated for outreach and direct services for older victims. The award period is 36 months for continuation applicants. Budgets must reflect 36 months of project activity. A minimum of 33% of the proposed budget funds for outreach and direct services for older victims. Generally, the award period will start October 1st, 2022. In 2022, new applicants or those who have never received funds under the Abuse in Later Life program or whose previous funding expired on or before April 26, 2021. Continuation applicants or those that have existing or recently closed after April 26, 2021 award under the Abuse in Later Life program. Please note that recipients of the FY 2020 or FY 2021 award under the Abuse in Later Life program are not eligible to apply as the lead applicant or as a partner subrecipient on an FY 2022 proposal. Likewise, an organization that is a partner recipient or subrecipient on an FY 2020 or FY 2021 award is not eligible to apply as the lead applicant or as a partner subrecipient on an FY 2022 proposal. Current grantees with a substantial amount of unobligated funds remaining, 50% or more of the previous award, as of April 30th, 2022, without adequate justification may not be considered for funding or may receive a reduced award amount if selected for funding in FY 2022. There are a number of mandatory program requirements for grantees of the Abuse in Later Life program. New applicants must engage in the following mandatory activities in the training and cross-training purpose areas. They must send representatives from the 4 required MOU partners and a project coordinator to grantee orientation. They must send a multidisciplinary training team with representatives from the 4 required MOU partners and a project coordinator to the Law Enforcement Training of Trainers event. The team must return to the community and redeliver 8-hour law enforcement trainings to law enforcement in the project area. The training uses a curriculum that has been developed by experts and approved by OVW. Applicants must include funds in their budgets to bring national experts to their community to provide the advanced law enforcement training. This is done locally for detectives and investigators. The training uses a curriculum that has been developed by experts and approved by OVW. Each applicant must receive commitments from prosecutors' offices in its jurisdictions to have prosecutors attend the National Institute on the Prosecution of Elder Abuse, a 3-day course designed to challenge prosecutors to reevaluate their approach to prosecuting elder abuse cases. Each applicant must agree to encourage judges in its jurisdiction to attend a 4-day National Judicial Institute on elder abuse, neglect, and exploitation. This commitment to encourage must be detailed in the MOU. Each applicant must agree to send representatives from 2 MOU partners, one from the victim service provider and one from the program or agency with demonstrated experience in assisting individuals in later life, and the project coordinator to a 3-day direct service training of trainers event on providing services to older victims. That team must return to the community and redeliver the 8-hour direct service cross-training. Attendance at grantee orientation, the law enforcement and direct services training of trainers events, and the prosecution and judicial institutes will require participants to travel to these OVW-sponsored training events. The kickoff and coordinated community response events, each applicant and its project partners must agree to conduct a local full-day cross-training consisting of 2 events. A half-day kickoff event to help various disciplines develop a better understanding of the roles each one plays in addressing elder abuse in their community, and a coordinated community response or CCR event to meet and discuss the role that the CCR will play in the implementation of the project. The trainers, including travel costs for this event, will be provided by the OVW Abuse in Later Life Program's technical assistance provider. Grantees will be responsible for providing the venue for this local event. Next slide. Continuation applicants must send representatives from the 4 MOU partners and a project coordinator to grantee orientation. Continuation grantees will be permitted to engage in other training activities based on the needs of their continuation project. Applicants should clearly identify which trainings their projects will include and detail why the additional training is needed. Funds should be included in the budget to cover the costs associated with participating in the chosen trainings. Both new and continuation applicants must agree to establish or support a multidisciplinary collaborative community response to abuse in later life, including domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. New applicants must agree to engage in a 2-phase effort to provide services to older victims and detail these efforts in their MOU. The new applicants are required to allocate a minimum of 25% of their proposed budget to fund outreach and direct services for older victims. During the planning phase, grantees will work with OVW and the Abuse in Later Life Program technical assistance providers to establish the groundwork for developing or enhancing outreach and services to older victims. The planning phase will be for 12 months. Upon successfully completing the planning phase and upon receipt of OVW approval of the strategic plan for outreach and services delivery, grantees will begin the implementation phase for the delivery of services to older victims. Funds included in the budget for the implementation phase will be placed on hold through a special condition on the award. The grantee will not have access to these funds until OVW determines that the grantee has successfully completed the planning phase, that the proposed use of funds addresses the needs of older victims as identified during the planning phase, and that the grantee has an acceptable strategic plan in place. Continuation applicants must agree to provide outreach and services for older individuals. All continuation applicants are required to allocate a minimum of 33% of the proposed budget to fund outreach and direct services for older victims. Continuation grantees will be required to conduct a critical assessment to re-examine the outreach and services funded under their initial Abuse in Later Life Award to ensure that they continue to meet the needs of older victims and address challenges in service provision that occurred during the previous project. This review will take place within 6 months of the project's start date. The list of eligible applicants for this program can be found in the solicitation starting on page 10. Eligible applicants for this program are states, units of local government, for example, cities, counties, towns, villages, and parishes, tribal governments or tribal organizations, population-specific organizations with demonstrated experience in assisting individuals over 50 years of age, victim service providers with demonstrated experience in addressing domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking, and state, tribal, or territorial domestic violence or sexual assault coalitions. Non-eligible entities generally include, but are not limited to, police departments, pretrial service agencies, district or city attorney's offices, sheriff's departments, probation and parole departments, and universities. These agencies or organizations are not eligible to apply directly for funding, but may assume responsibility for the development and implementation of the project. They must have their state, tribal government, or unit of local government apply as the lead applicant. Each applicant must demonstrate that it is part of a multidisciplinary partnership. This required partnership must include, at a minimum, the following 4 required partners: at least 1 law enforcement agency, 1 prosecutor's office, 1 victim service provider, and 1 nonprofit program or government agency with demonstrated experience in assisting individuals in later life. This required partnership must be detailed in the Memorandum of Understanding, also known as the MOU, which is signed by the authorized representative of, at a minimum, the 4 required partners. Applications that do not meet this requirement will not be eligible for Abuse in Later Life program funding and will be removed from consideration. OVW will consider only 1 application per organization for the same service area. In addition, if an applicant submits multiple versions of the application, OVW will review only the most recent system-validated version submitted before the deadline. Project narratives from new applicants may not exceed 20 pages. Project narratives from continuation applicants may not exceed 25 pages. Applications must be double-spaced. Charts may be single-spaced. Applications must be on 8.5 by 11-inch paper with 1-inch margins using type no smaller than 12-point Times New Roman font and include page numbers. Points may be deducted for applications that do not adhere to these requirements. Applications must demonstrate that the program eligibility requirements have been met. Applications must include the project narrative, the budget detailed worksheet and narrative, a Memorandum of Understanding or MOU, and if applicable, letters of commitment. OVW will not contact applicants for any of these items if they are missing. Applications that do not include all of these documents will be considered substantially incomplete and will not be considered for funding. Please see the solicitation starting on page 19 for more specific information that must be included in each section of the application. In addition, the proposal abstract, which is to be entered in the text box in JustGrants, will not be scored but is used throughout the review process. All new applicants and continuation applicants proposing to provide training must submit a Memorandum of Understanding and letters of commitment. Continuation applicants that are not providing training must submit only an MOU. The MOU must clearly identify each of the 4 required MOU partners, consisting of at least 1 law enforcement agency, 1 prosecutor's office, 1 victim service provider, and 1 nonprofit program or government agency with demonstrated experience in assisting individuals in later life. The MOU partner serving as the required victim service provider must provide services to victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, or stalking as one of its primary purposes. The MOU partner serving as the required nonprofit program or government agency with demonstrated experience in assisting individuals in later life must provide services to victims of elder abuse, neglect, or exploitation as one of its primary purposes. All new applicants must submit letters of commitment from each agency and organization, including MOU partners, committing to sending personnel to the following: the local 1-day law enforcement training, the local advanced law enforcement training, the National Prosecutors Institute, and the local direct service cross training. Continuation applicants that propose to conduct training must submit letters of commitment for the trainings they are proposing as part of their project. Training is a significant component of the Abuse in Later Life program. It is important for a sizable number of law enforcement, prosecutors, victim service providers, and other professionals to be trained to increase the number of professionals able to recognize the signs of elder abuse and connect older victims with appropriate services. As such, the following will be considered when scoring this section of the application: the number of officers, deputies, detectives, investigators, law enforcement agencies that are committed to sending staff to the local 1-day law enforcement training or the advanced law enforcement training, the percentage of the law enforcement agency's sworn law enforcement personnel who are committed to attending the 1-day law enforcement training and or the advanced law enforcement training, the number of prosecutors committed to attend the National Prosecutors Institute, and the number of individuals whose agencies and organizations are committing to sending them to the direct service cross training. Letters of commitment that do not clearly specify the number of personnel who will attend training will not be considered during the review process. Letters of support may not be substituted in lieu of letters of commitment. In the next couple of slides, we are going to focus on aspects of your application that relate to the documents that our financial team, the Grants Financial Management Division, or GFMD, reviews. More specifically, we will discuss some items that GFMD has identified from prior years' applications that could help with expediting our review process. So for today, we're going to highlight certain aspects of the pre-award risk assessment and provide you with a link to a detailed webinar on how to develop the budget that will be included in your application. First, we will highlight the items identified in the data requested with application, which is completed by all applicants in a survey in JustGrants. A list of questions included in the survey appears at the end of the solicitation under the heading Survey Questions. Applicants should click on the survey name, Pre-Award Risk Assessment, to access and complete the survey in JustGrants. Specifically, 3 items that we would like to discuss are the nonprofit requirement, the single audit requirement, and the IRS 3-step safe harbor procedure. If you are an eligible victim service provider to receive enhanced training and services to end abuse in later life program funding, you are required to submit a determination letter from the IRS recognizing your tax-exempt status. OVW cannot make an award to any nonprofit organization that does not submit a 501c3 determination letter. We highlight this specifically because applicants are not including this as part of their application, and this further delays our review. Please ensure that this document is included if applicable. OVW requests that all applicants provide a statement as to whether they have expended $750,000 or more in federal funds during their last fiscal year. If they have, then they indicate that and also specify the end date of their last fiscal year. However, GFMD is finding that applicants do not always include all of this information. Please ensure that this question is answered in its entirety on the data requested with application survey, question number 3. Another item that we would like to highlight from the solicitation is specifically for nonprofit organizations. If you use the IRS 3-step safe harbor procedure to determine your executive's compensation, you are required to provide a disclosure letter. Page 21 of the solicitation provides further details and a link to a sample letter. Note that there are 4 required parts of this disclosure letter. The sample letter provided outlines all 4 parts of the disclosure. So please be sure to follow the sample and provide a response to each of the 4 pieces. The next item that we'd like to discuss is the pre-award risk assessment survey, which assists GFMD during their pre-award risk assessment review for all applications. Each applicant must prepare a response to all 11 questions, and each question has multiple parts. We've noticed from prior years that applicants did not always fully answer all parts of the questions. In turn, this requires GFMD to reach out to the applicant, which may delay funding decisions. Some of the most common issues that we've encountered have been, for example, question 2, where the applicant indicates that they do indeed have internal policies, but they don't provide a list of topics covered in the policies and procedures. On question 3, some applicants fail to provide a brief summary of the organization's process for tracking expenditures, and more specifically, whether or not it tracks budgeted versus actual expenditures. These are just a few examples. In general, please make sure that you read each piece of each question and provide a full and comprehensive response. This next slide will quickly highlight some resources that are available as you are creating the budget to be submitted with your application. Over the last couple of years, GFMD has developed a detailed webinar presentation on how to develop a budget to be submitted with your OVW application. This presentation addresses some of the challenges that you may face with your budgets and provides some insights on OVW's budget review process. This webinar can be found at the link on this slide. Additionally, the JustGrants page has resources for completing the web-based budget in JustGrants. Next up is the uniform guidance, which can be found at 2 CFR 200. Use your favorite search engine for this one. Other resources include the DOJ Financial Guide and the ALL solicitation itself. We know this can be a lot of information to process, so if you have any questions about the GFMD information discussed, please feel free to contact the GFMD Help Desk at 888-514-8556 or by mail at ovw.gfmd@usdoj.gov. Applicants may find this funding opportunity on grants.gov by using the CFDA number, grants.gov opportunity number, or the title of this solicitation, all of which can be found on the cover page. The FY22 application submission process is a 2-step process. Applications materials will be submitted in both grants.gov and JustGrants. Read the solicitation carefully to understand all steps required to submit an application and the time to complete those steps. Some steps, such as obtaining a Data Universal Number System or DUNS number, or registering with the System for Award Management or SAM, or grants.gov, may take several days to complete. We recommend applicants Begin these procedures as soon as possible, but no later than the dates suggested in the solicitation. Applicants must complete the application for federal assistance, the SF 424, in grants.gov. Read the Information to complete the application for federal assistance, SF 424 section in the solicitation carefully for all requirements. Applicants must complete and submit the disclosure of lobbying activities, SFLLL, in grants.gov. After submitting these forms, the applicant will receive an email notification from JustGrants to complete the rest of the application in JustGrants. If the applicant is a new user in JustGrants, the email will include instructions on registering with JustGrants. Applicants will submit the full application, including attachments, in JustGrants. The proposal abstract will be entered in the text box. For the data requested with application, responses to posed questions will be uploaded as an attachment. The proposal narrative will be uploaded as an attachment. The budget worksheet and budget narrative will be completed in a web-based form. The Memorandum of Understanding and/or Letters of Commitment will be uploaded as attachments. Read the solicitation carefully for other documentation required for all application or when applicable. In JustGrants, each applying entity will have an assigned entity administrator who is responsible for managing entity-level information and assigning roles in the system. The entity administrator is also the eBiz POC designated in sam.gov. For more information on registering with JustGrants, see https://justicgrants.usdoj.gov. Within 24 hours of JustGrants receiving your application from grants.gov, the user submitting the application in JustGrants and SAM eBusiness POC will receive an email to register for a JustGrants account. The email is from DOJ's Secure User Management System, Diamond, and will include instructions on how to create an account. To ensure that you receive these emails and that they are not flagged as spam, we recommend adding diamond-no reply at usdoj.gov to the trusted sender list in your email settings. The eBiz point of contact at the applicant organization serves as the entity administrator and must log into JustGrants to confirm the entity's profile and add users. The user submitting the application in JustGrants serves as the application submitter. Within minutes of completing your JustGrants account registration, the application submitter and the eBiz point of contact, entity administrator, users will receive an email from JustGrants with a link to the application started in grants.gov registration. Alternately, the applicant submitter can log in to JustGrants and locate your pending application, numeric digits, excluding grant, of grants.gov tracking number in your task list on the homepage landing page. Example, grants.gov format, grant 99999999, and JustGrants format, 99999999. The entity administrator will need to log into JustGrants to review the authorized representatives associated with the entity. If an authorized representative needs to be invited, the entity administrator will need to invite the individual to receive a JustGrants account. Note that an organization can have more than one authorized representative as long as those individuals have documented authority to sign an agreement with the federal government. These actions are required before an application can be submitted. Within minutes of being invited to be an authorized representative, the individual will receive an email from diamond-no reply at usdoj.gov with instructions on how to create an account in DOJ's Secure User Management System. Once the authorized representative receives the email and completes the steps to create an account, the authorized representative will be available in JustGrants. The application submitter will need to complete the application by entering data into web-based forms, uploading attachments, and accepting assurances and certifications. The application submitter will also need to select the authorized representatives. Once all sections are complete, the application submitter will submit the application. Upon successful submission of an application, the application submitter, entity administrator, and authorized representative will receive an email from JustGrants confirming submission of the application. The Department of Justice has made a collection of self-guided training resources, including training and a virtual Q&A session on application submission, available at the link listed on the slide. Applicants must comply with applicable federal civil rights laws, which, among other things, prohibit recipients from discriminating on the basis of national origin and disability. Applicants must include funds or other resources in their budget to ensure access for individuals with disabilities, deaf or hard of hearing individuals, and individuals with limited English proficiency. Applications are due by 9 p.m. Eastern Time on April 25th, 2022. Applications submitted after 9 o'clock Eastern Time on April 25th, 2022 will not be considered for funding. Carefully review the How to Apply and Submissions, Dates, and Times sections, pages 22 and 23 of the solicitation, for applicant actions that required deadlines and OVW's policy on late submissions. Submitting the application components at least 48 hours before each deadline, grants.gov or JustGrants as applicable, will enable applicants to receive notice of a failed submission and provide an opportunity to correct the error before the application deadline. As you work on completing your application, please keep in mind the following common errors applicants make when submitting their application. Some applicants simply fail to answer the questions asked in the solicitation. OVW receives applications from entities that are not eligible or that fail to have the 4 required MOU partners. Given that completing and submitting an application requires a degree of time and effort, please carefully read the eligibility requirements found on page 10 and 11 and the partnership requirements on page 12 of the solicitation. OVW also receives applicants that are substantially incomplete and therefore removed from consideration. Please consult pages 12 and 13 of the solicitation for the list of documents that must be submitted, and see page 28 for an application checklist to assist with the process. Additional errors include having the incorrect type of partner. Please note on page 11 that the solicitation states that the victim service provider must provide services to victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, or stalking as one of its primary purposes, and that the nonprofit program or government agency with demonstrated experience in assisting individuals in later life must provide services to victims of elder abuse, neglect, or exploitation as one of its primary purposes. Applicants also make the error of submitting an MOU that is not signed by all 4 of the required MOU partners. Please see page 19. Letters of commitment are sometimes submitted which fail to include the number of people to be trained. As detailed on page 20, letters of commitment that do not clearly specify the number of personnel who will attend training will not be considered during the review process. If anyone has any programmatic questions, contact the Abuse in Later Life program regarding the solicitation by email at ovw.elder@usl.org. usdoj.gov or calling OVW at 202-307-6026. If you have any financial questions, email ovwgfmd@usdoj.gov or call 202-307-6026. For technical questions about grants.gov, email grants.gov applicant support at support@grants.gov or call 800-518-4726. For technical questions about OVW JustGrants support, email ovw.justgrantsupport@usdoj.gov or call 866-655-4482. This concludes the pre-application information session for the FY22 OVW Enhanced Training and Services to End Abuse in Later Life program.